This is Sarah, and I just want to take a moment to speak to you about this week's sponsor, Favor. Favor Inc. is a statewide family-led nonprofit 501c3 organization that is committed to empowering families as advocates and partners in improving educational and health outcomes for our children. Favor is the Connecticut state organization of the Federation of Families for Children's Mental Health. Favor offers a single place for families with children who have medical, mental, emotional, and behavioral health challenges to find information, assistance, and training. To find out more about Favor, please go to favor-ct.org. We are grateful for our opportunity to work with Favor as a sponsor, and now on to the rest of the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Caregiver Chronicles. Today I have a very special guest, Gina Uricchio, and she's here to talk about art, being a mother, and her daughter, Allie. Hi, Gina. How are you?
Hi, good to be here.
Thank you. I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you so much for being here. Turns out we have a lot in common, and
Yes, we do.
we definitely do. So can you further introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I'm Gina Uricchio. I live in Connecticut with my family. I have my daughter, Allie, who is 24 and is on the autism spectrum. I have a son who's 22, and then we live with my husband in our home in Rocky Hill. And currently we are a family still navigating life on the autism spectrum. And I like to talk about what it's like to live in a house that houses autism for all of the people living in it. And that encompasses art, yoga, caregiving, just the dynamic of being a mom, a sister, a daughter, a friend, and all the categories that go along with being a woman in today's world and navigating space for myself and learning and practicing, teaching others how to do it as well as I keep learning. So definitely the student, lifelong student.
Awesome. And I agree with that because I fall into almost all of those roles as well. Um,
Yes.
while my kids are younger, it's a little different, but it's just it really is like our life journey, our caregiving journey, our parenting journey. There's always just so much overlap in cohesion with that and stuff like that. So, I
Yeah. So
really appreciate you for that. Go ahead.
our 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 business is called MotherAsana, and it just was born from the root of my yoga practice, really, and obviously my mothering. I became a mother at age 30, and really, was always a sort of spiritual seeker, a deep soul, old soul type of gal. And I was sitting one day with Allie, and basically what happens in the house that houses autism, I feel, is that you wake up in the morning, and one of the first things that you need to do is connect with your child. And having a neurotypical, however you want to describe him in this interview, I guess, I know we need to find a new word for the sibling, but having my son be typical and just saying, "Hey, how you doing? Good morning," didn't really work for Allie. And so we could say good morning, but she may not say good morning back. And so hence that would begin the day of, how do I connect with this girl? How am I going to be satisfied in my connection with her and have her be sort of satisfied with me? So Mother Asana came from the word asana in yoga, is where we sit with presence and purpose in our yoga pose. And so you don't have to be in any sort of pose. You don't have to be in like some crazy complicated pose to be in asana. You can be in sukhasana, which is just sitting. And so one day I was sitting with Allie across the kitchen table, and I decided that motherhood is one of the highest asanas we can achieve. Sitting with presence and purpose and finding connection in my body, and then connecting my energy with her. And having a child on the spectrum, it is a lot about the energy exchange that goes on. And from that point on, I decided that it really didn't have to be like a 3-hour shopping trip, which I knew wasn't, going to happen with me and my daughter, but maybe it's just 2 minutes or 1 minute a day, as long as it's like scratching her hands or giving her a hug or sharing a popsicle with her or one of her favorite things. And it would satisfy me. And I knew that I could get that over and over throughout the day in these 1 minute or 2 minutes segments throughout the day. And I was getting more than, say, if I just said, let's go to the mall and we're going to have a shopping trip, because then that involves so much other variables. So I practice that in mothering with her, and it's different. I'm honored to kind of, I know to mother in different ways, in 2 different ways. So with my son, it's like, hey, what's going on? He's a 22-year-old man now. He's like, what do you want for breakfast? Do you want to go to the diner? Do you want to go get some eggs? Let's get an iced coffee. And then with Allie, it's sort of like, okay, let me go in this, I go in through these different windows all day long. And it's, I found that I'm good at it because I'm creative and I try really, I try hard. But it's not about pleasing to the point where I feel overwhelmed. It's just that now that I've had her, I've been so blessed to have her for 22 years. I'm getting better at it. And there's certain days where I'm like, well, I blew that up. I went in and I tried to, and she was under the covers in her bed with her iPad and she was just like, no, no, no. And I'm like, hey. And she's like, no. In fact, she has a word for it. It's called mommy walk, please. And I use that as the signal, like, not right now. And so there's a lot to learn just in that little capsule, but that's really how MotherAsana was born. And it's all about our family and connection.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I can relate to that in a sense of, my youngest son is completely nonverbal. And so to have the expectation to connect with him looks a lot different than connecting with, even though both of my boys are on the spectrum, connecting with my older son who is verbal, connecting with them is just different. My younger son, if I get a hug and eye contact, that's an incredible connection that day. If he comes up to me and wants to do nose kisses, or if I say, hey, nose kisses time, or snuggly, snuggly buggly is one of his favorite things that I like to call him. He'll grab a blanket, he'll come sit on me, and we'll just cuddle. And those moments of connection are just so priceless. And there's always different ways to achieve them with, a child with limited or who is nonverbal. My older son is completely verbal. And to get him to connect, I'm very grateful for that, for all of my older son's words. Almost always. I'm not going to say always, but almost always. But getting him to connect with me is usually more like, hey, how was your day with, or who won blank game, or how was your track meet, or, whatever. It's a little easier to coax that connection out. How, if you don't mind me asking, how verbal is Allie?
Allie's, well, funny you should ask, because that's how we put together our family journal that we wrote, because Allie is more of a 1 to 3, maybe 4 word gal. So she'll come up with these little sayings, and she can communicate her needs with like 3 or 4 words. Every once in a while, she'll bang out a really great sentence and tell us about her emotions. For a long time, Allie would just communicate with 1 or 2 words. So basically, she can communicate. She just, it depends too on the mood.
Yeah.
And definitely she communicates through her smile and her emotions, I would say the most. She also is echolalic, which I'm sure you know about. And so she repeats what you say, and then you kind of have to decide if she wants it for real or not. So you could say like, go to Dairy Queen, and she'll say, go to Dairy Queen. And you're like, do you want to go to Dairy Queen? And she's like, go to Dairy Queen. And then you're like, so then you almost have to present her with a choice, go to Dairy Queen or Panera. And then she'll go to Panera. And then you're like, oh, so you don't want Dairy Queen, or you want Dairy Queen after Panera. How do you want to set this up? So it's a lot of like back and forth with the exchange. She speaks in these funny terms where she picks up a lot from her different videos and stuff. So I started keeping track of all the different sayings that she had. And then she's a beautiful artist. So then we started taking her art and what she was doing with her unusual artwork, and then attaching the sayings to her artwork. And then from that point, I would write like a muse or have some insight on how they are affecting our life or what she brings into our life. And so we built our family journal around that we present as a book and an activity book with all these different insights in them. And the opportunity, say, for a family like yours to maybe connect with your one son in one way, but then since you have a different kid, you have this other kid who wants to like draw and paint and keep talking about it. But then, say with Allie would take off and she'd be long gone with maybe her popsicle or her reward. And you'd be left sitting at the kitchen table with your other son, or maybe even you have your niece over or your nephew over, and they're like, well, I want to keep talking about this, or I want to keep drawing, or I want to keep going. And so I felt like families really needed that opportunity for that freedom in a house that houses autism, just to have the freedom. So, okay, because that happens every day in a typical household of 3 kids who, like, we have one who left the table, one who's coming back, this one's here, you don't want to paint anymore. So we created a variety of artistic expressions and activities that you can do that take like 30 seconds for a connection, or, hey, have at it, have all day with it, and enjoy yourself.
That's really awesome. So her art has inspired, your book, your family workbook, like you're saying. And what do you mind just going back to a little bit? What got Allie interested in art, or how did she get interested in art?
Yeah, she was I like to say before iPad, right? So BIP, before the iPad. She spent a lot of time just once she learned to write, she started making little characters on her own. And then she would write down the words to songs and stuff with her handwriting, and it became soothing to her as a way she would engage her in an activity herself. And it was different than engaging in pretend play or a toy, which she wouldn't really know how to correctly use. So she was able to hold the crayon and then scribble or find colors and sort of just take on the imagination herself and use it properly, might I add. So like, instead of like just using the toy, like spinning it or, doing the same thing over and over, this was something by holding this crayon or pen or paints that she was able to have this freedom of expression. And at the same time, parallel situations where she was in school with typical kids, or like other situations, she would, seem relatively like at ease and quiet with her autism. So, her autism wouldn't be so big. We like to say sometimes it stays nice and small, and she can kind of diffuse herself in different environments.
That's awesome.
As she got older, it started on Microsoft Paint. So some of her art is done on Microsoft Paint. The cornerstone of our one of our artworks is called Shine. And this is a son that she came home with one day. And I asked her the name of it, and she said, it's Shine. And so basically we've created some products and merchandise that we sell on our website through that give back to autism organizations that encourage everyone to, we go out there every day. I think our kids, Sarah, go out there every day and shine their best light. Like, they try so hard to be in the world. They do their best at the grocery store. They do their best at the mall. They do their best at the pool or the beach or the snack stand, waiting in line. The parents, us, do our best, with the rays of the sun. Like, we shine over them, and together it's just a really bright light. And I think society has a lot to learn about people like us and what we put forth in the world.
Yeah, no, I agree with that statement. And I think, that's the whole reason I'm here doing this. And I feel like that's your driving force as well. Shine, awareness, acceptance, inclusion. Without inclusion, our kids don't get to be part of society.
Yeah. And I think, and we don't either.
Exactly. There's too many parents that I see shut themselves in their home because they can't take their child anywhere because of meltdowns or agitation or whatever, rather than teaching. And we spend so much time and energy focusing on how to get our kids to adjust to the world, rather than just letting the world accept them as they are and say, you know what, maybe that behavior isn't appropriate for me, who's a neurotypical person, but if Joey or Allie is going to if Joey's going to throw food around in a restaurant a little bit, we'll just tip higher. You know what I mean? A little bit higher, or something like that. Or if Allie's gonna rock, or I don't know what her stim is that she does, but if she's gonna rock or something like that, and other people need to just say, hey, you know what? That's fine. It's not hurting anybody. Joey's flapping doesn't hurt anybody. Jumping, and that's just part of inclusion.
She's so auditorily sensitive, and to tag on to what you said, like, we were in a restaurant like a month ago, and there was this woman, and you were scoping out the restaurant, and we're like, okay, good, that's a good table. It's like a circle table. It's got the booth where she can kind of have some room to move and flail around, and like you said, flap or just take up a little bit more space, because she does. And there was this woman who seated right next to me at the end of the table, at a different table, who had just a loud laugh. And every time this woman laughed, it pierced Allie, and it just affected her. And she was having trouble coping in the environment, And so there's all these like little things that, we as the parent can diffuse, and we can say, okay, the laugh is too loud, but you're trying to eat and you're trying to have this experience, and you have other people at the table, and then this woman's laughing, and you're like wondering what's wrong with your daughter. And then you're like, okay, is she gonna make it? Is she gonna make it through this meal? Is she gonna make it to the food? And we have always different things that happen where it's like, we'll just get our food to go, or we're just decided to leave, or, oh, she's sticking it out. She can tolerate this laugh. Like, she realizes like this lady's going to laugh through the whole lunch. You just don't know when you're in there.
Exactly.
In the restaurant. I think Allie feels a lot of the energy too. Even I'll use a restaurant as example, but we've been finding like lunch is just the lunchtime is a little bit less stressful. Like, people just don't have the same, like, oh, it's their Saturday night or Friday night or whatever. The different energy that is at dinner time than at lunchtime is a little bit more relaxed. And obviously the outdoor seating is just, beautiful, because she can enjoy outside. So there's so many considerations that we have to take when we leave the house. And she's 22 years old. And so, we'd love to say, like, we just fly. Some days we have to fly off the handle and just say, you know what, Al, this is where we're eating and this is what it is. And if you have to go sit in the car with dad, then we'll just stay in the restaurant or whatever. But to make it productive and a family time, there's a lot of different things that come into our decision making.
Exactly. And I can I can relate to that all too well with, not with a 22-year-old girl, but with a 7-year-old boy. Um, but
Yeah.
I think it's a similar story for all of us. If you don't mind, I would like you to talk a little bit about your yoga journey and how that's prepared
Yeah.
you and basically put you in a space to be a great mom of a neurodiverse child.
Thank you. Yeah, I love talking about yoga. And I think my yoga journey has just been incredible. It's just an incredible dance of getting really inside the mothering and teaching, but mostly it's taught me that I'm the student a lot of the time, just like a yoga student on her mat. I'm the student here in this house, and my daughter is really teaching me everything. And really latching on to that insight of being, even though I am her teacher and I am her elder and I am her mother, yoga has taught me that to really listen and be the student when I'm sure I'm the teacher. And so it's also taught me to keep showing up when you can't go in any further, and just really follow the path of the open heart in the present moment and the awareness, and just to receive and just get as much as I can out of these moments, but really keep showing up. And so beginning again and again and again, like, we're so lucky. We don't even take for granted the breaths that we take when we first wake up in the morning. And then by lunchtime, there's days where I haven't even taken my first deep breath. And when I do, just being so grateful for that and just having that. So it's not only about, moving the body and getting all the benefits of the inside of our body through the blood just circulating through our organs. I think as women, as mothers, as caregivers, we have to just, if anything, first and foremost, learn to breathe and move the oxygen so we can think clearly, because we are constantly, Sarah, as you know, moving from one moment to the next in like these small amounts of times where things are just moving so fast. I like to describe it like, laundry, because it's like you put the laundry in and you're sort of the laundry gets washed and then you're squeezed, like, because it's like squeezing everything, and then you're spinning and you're tossed around, and then somehow you get your clothes in the dryer, and then you take them out and they're folded and ironed, and you're like, oh, okay, it's done. But that's sort of like our life, and it moves like, she won't get on the bus. She's getting on the bus. Oh, she got on the bus. Okay, she went in. Okay, she's going to walk down the thing. She's going to do the thing. Okay, she did the thing. Okay, now she's back. Okay, all right. Okay, good. Let's just breathe. And so the adrenaline that comes up as a mother, it not, Allie's out there living her best life and she's doing it, and she definitely has her stressors, believe me. But if she's out there living her best life, what is the best way that I can live my best life here inside the house when she leaves, or when we both leave, or I'm on my yoga mat, or I'm teaching yoga, or I'm alongside another mom who's just getting a diagnosis and doesn't understand what this is, or you're alongside me and you're like, I don't understand what this is because now she's 22 and what do you do with her?
Yeah. And that's actually that last thing that you brought up. My daughter's 22. What do you do? Finishing school and things like that for kids who are on the spectrum who might have a bit more struggles. There's like a huge gap in resources. I haven't gotten there yet. But I have talked to so many mothers of adult children on the spectrum who are just like, it's hard to get resources when your kid is little and you have to fight for them. And then you get into the groove by the time they're in high school, finally you got it, they're there. And then they graduate and then it's hard. Do you want to share a little bit about that? Do you feel comfortable talking about
Yeah,
that a little bit?
I would love to. I mean, what I'm going to say one thing first to all the parents and grandparents and moms that, we know about IEP meetings and we go in and there's 9 people, 10 people at the table. There's physical therapists, there's OTs, there's speech, there's, the regular teacher, there's the para, there's the special ed person, there's the principal. And then you get to 22 and guess who's at the table? You. Minus all those people. It's you and your spouse or your husband or your significant other, and it's you. And you are the initiator. You're the self-starter. You're the one who has to learn. You find out about what the benefits are, what the resources are, where the state of Connecticut, for example, will support her. And then still, you are the person, no matter what. There is not going to be this person coming to you and be like, we've laid this all out for you. She needs this at this time. She needs this at this time. She needs this at this time. It's reversed. It's you now out there telling people she needs this at this time. She needs this at this time. Let's look into this. Let's try this. Let's try this volunteer opportunity. Let's find this day program. What can Allie tolerate out in the world? How much can she tolerate adulting? Will she be a worker? Will she be a volunteer? How will she spend her leisure time? What are her leisure skills? It goes on and on and on and on. So you are, essentially the CAO with this multi-million-dollar child, and you've got this tiny budget, which, I mean, the state of Connecticut does pretty well with the budget. I have to say I'm really happy with what they offer us, but we have to keep showing up. We have to, well, what I refer to is just like you and I change our minds, right? So you're like, wow, I was really interested in, baking these cakes for 10 years and look at what I turned over. And then all of a sudden you're like, I don't really bake anymore, or I'm not really interested in that. Same thing with Allie. It's like, she's not always gonna love this, that, and that, what she does. She's going to get bored. She wants to change. She wants to. So I'm finding that our book is written through the seasons, and I'm finding that every season we go through a change here in what she wants to do. We kind of take her schedule. You're like, you don't want to take that art class anymore. Are you getting bored? You want to go to yoga class, or you don't want to go to the group yoga. You kind of want it more for yourself. And so she needs that change. And you, as the mom, have to kind of be completely into, or the caregiver, you have to be completely in tune to, you don't want to look too far ahead, but you want to stay ahead. So you're like, so then when she drops the ball and she's like, I don't want to go to that art class anymore. You're like, well, we can't just sit here on Thursday mornings from 10 to 12 because you're supposed to be somewhere. But at the same time, is she looking for some space? And maybe she needs that space to just do nothing, to grow and have some time to herself. And she surprises me every time. She's like, okay, I'm ready to go back in. It looks different and it changes, and we keep adapting. And so I have her day program. I have 2 caregivers or coaches who I hired through the state of Connecticut, through the budget, not through the state of Connecticut. I had to go out and find these people. but I use my budget through the state of Connecticut. So she has a day program with socialization, and then she has certain days where she does like her swimming at the YMCA, or she has her little yoga class, or she's out doing her grocery shopping or doing curbside at Target. If she's in a bad mood and she doesn't want to go to Target or the grocery store to get her stuff, then we do curbside, because she's still got to get her stuff done. If you want to have ketchup and you want to have your toast in the morning, we're out of that. So somehow we're going to have to get that. And you're an adult now, and you have to participate too, even if you're just buying these two things. So adulting isn't always like, yeah, we're having so much fun here. We're swimming at the Y, that's great, but we're not having fun all the time, because let's face it, your husband, my dad, your dad, no, your mom, they weren't having fun all the time in their first job, their second job, their third job, their fourth job. Maybe they were, by the time they got into their third job, finally found what they love. Some people never, really find what they love. Some people don't have the opportunity to do what they love and get paid for it.
Exactly.
So it's a journey every day. Like today, it's raining here in Connecticut, and I had a little afternoon planned with one of our coaches, and it involves some outside activities. And now I'm like, okay, I got to switch this up. I got to change this up. And, she may not be out as long as, I intended her to be. And so we're constantly moving and changing, and that's a lot on my mind all day long, where I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to promote and do stuff for the book, for her and I, to kind of create this little niche where she has her art and can do little activities and things like that. But it's also me showing up because I have other people in the house who have to contribute to our dinner that needs to be made, and the beds that need to be changed. And, and then where's remember, I'm supposed to be breathing. And so where's that 15 minutes where I get to have that freedom, where I'm just like, I think I'm going to have a cup of coffee, or should I call a friend? Who can I call? Who's really going to be a listener for me? But then there's the pleaser in me who has to go out there and be the listener for others. So there's so much to talk about. And, it's like the rays of the sun, the rays of the shine. There's so many topics.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And especially taking the time to let your daughter evolve and recognizing where you need to step up and who you become as her team throughout that transition. That's really great of you and really brave of you to be so vulnerable and honest about all of that and all of your responsibilities as a mom and how they might differ from a neurotypical mom. I really appreciate that. Not everybody is so candid. And
stuff's going to happen to you. I'm sorry to interrupt. Stuff's going to happen to you, and stuff has happened to me, and it's happened to my body. I had breast cancer 9 years ago. I was diagnosed. The doctor called me on the phone. The radiologist called me. And the first thing I said when I hung up the phone was, I can't die. And I was like, okay, that's ridiculous. We're all going to die. And it's really, that's where I was like, you know what? This is my life's work. I mean, I always knew it was my life's work. It's just, I think you do too. I just think it's like at different stages of your life, you have to organize like what is the topic, or what's coming up for you right now, and talk about what's happening for you right now. Cause that's how we help and we heal others. I learned that I'm not going to be around, forever to take care of this girl. And it's not something I want to talk about every day and like, be like, wah, 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 but there's a discussion there, and there is some planning there, and there is a support team. And there's also that team that you get in place, and then it changes because people move on. Just like Allie gets, wants to move on, and you're like, well, I did this podcast for so many years, and now I'm like changing the focus of things, or taking it out on the road, or I'm taking a break. We move on. And so, how will life evolve for her after? And have we even talked about my son, who is ultimately a caregiver and doesn't even really realize it yet?
Yeah.
He's 22, and it's inherently, he's born into this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, exactly. And I think that it's very eye-opening talking to you and realizing like things that I have thought about but haven't thought about in depth, and it's just very eye-opening and very validating, and I really appreciate you for that. Where can my audience find you?
Yes. We're at MotherAsana, that's ASANA.com on the web. We have a website, and you can see some of Allie's art, and then you can check in with us there on Instagram at MotherAsana and Facebook. And then we have a link on our website to get on our mailing list for our book that we're launching in the fall, The Art and the Voice of Autism, which is a compilation of her art and yoga insights and artistic expressions that we offer up to the family, and activities, and just sort of living in our life, creating and talking about our lifestyle and how we do things, but how we don't have to do things for a long time to have connection with that, and just also how the mother takes space for herself. And I think that's really the most important topics too in the book, is how are we going to be good to ourselves, while being so good to who we caregive for.
Exactly.
We become this mother our whole lives until they grow up, and then we're a mother and a caregiver.
Yep.
And rolled up in one. It's like, yep. Now I'm two people.
Exactly. And self-care is so important. I can't ever stress that enough on this podcast. That's a big part of why I'm here and why I'm doing what I do. Yeah. So again, Gina, thank you so much for coming on. It was really a pleasure to talk to you. I hope that I can have you back. Hopefully we'll touch base again soon about you coming back on and sharing more of your story, because there's so much more interesting stuff you got going on that I'd love to share.
I would love to too. Thank you.
And that will wrap up this week's episode of Caregiver Chronicles. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about this episode, you can reach out to Gina or myself. Gina's information will be on the link. My email is caregiverchroniclespod@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook, Caregiver Chronicles, Instagram, Caregiver Chronicles 2, Twitter, Caregiver Chron 1. If you liked this episode, liked what we had to say, liked what Gina said, feel like you know somebody who needs to hear some of this, please share it with a friend. Give us a like, a rating, a review. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next week.